I'm going to explain to you in the finest detail how to design and make the absolute best sauna in the world on the cheap. I did that and I'll explain why. My name is Tapani and I'm scout leader in Mankkaan Eräsudet scout troop in Espoo, Finland. I was asked to take the responsibility and task of service manager of a scout camp here in Finland. This includes managing the camp infrastructure, planning, construction, running the daily stuff and making sure everything works. So this includes the sauna. I had a team delegated to specific tasks and responsibilities. Typically the manager role are for the older scouts, the 15 to 19-year-olds, but this role landed on me, the 50-year-old. So I didn't decline, always willing to help. However, they were not aware of my daily job, as I am the owner and manager of Sauna Store, a company selling sauna accessories, sauna heaters, and realizing all sorts of sauna projects for customers that involve specification, conception, design, planning, and meeting really high expectations. We have over 3 decades of experience in sauna design. So when this came on me, I could not give the sauna responsibility to anyone else. I really wanted to do this as a challenge to myself, but also for the camp to have a really excellent sauna that everyone there would remember. There was a similar summer camp at the same site a few years earlier in 2017. They had the same constraints for the sauna construction. It has to be set up quickly, it can't cost much, and it will be taken down quickly. The persons making it, the scouts, typically don't have very much construction experience, and they are designing it as they go along without any detailed plans. So that sauna was quite sketchy, didn't hold the heat very well, and needed to be heated enormously with 2 heaters, which was not very safe. So this is what I had in mind for the sauna layout. The sauna needs to have seating capacity for circa 20 persons, which is a lot. The sauna will be rectangular and have the door in the middle, seating at both ends, and the heater in the middle where it's easy to service, to follow the fire burning and feed more wood. The passage to the benches goes well at a distance from the heater. So the sauna must fit 20 persons, so 10 on each side. A U-shaped bench is great for socializing. The most important factor in this sauna for kids from as young as 6 to 7 years old is safety. First of all, the heater manufacturer stated safety distances to the wood must be respected, but additionally the stove must be in a safe place so that no one will touch it inadvertently. The heater is a wood-burning model, and it must have plenty of stones to have capacity for plenty of steam. It needs to have the heating power, and such a grid structure gives soft heat and steam. So we'll select the heater right away. It needs to be cheap. We can get then the dimensions and required safety dimensions from that to begin drafting the sauna. So my idea and plan was to make a sauna in pre-made sections that can be carried by 2 people. The parts need to be made in advance, then transported to the site, and so the whole setting up process would only take max couple of days. As mentioned, the pre-made elements need to be carried as there is no road to the beach where it's set up. The wall sections width is determined by the insulation plate width and the frame board width. The insulation we will use is a 25mm thick urethane panel. That will double for the roof because the hottest point and thus the largest temperature difference between inside of the sauna and outside is in the roof. The height of the sauna is now limited by the length of the outside plates we have, but that's fine, it's plenty. The wall parts are thin, insulated, sealed, and will use really cheap materials, but we want it to function well and look great. if you need to improve the insulation of your sauna, so start with the roof. There are altogether 20 of these wall sections, of which 11 are identical, and there are the 4 corners that have identical parts. So we'll touch on many points that are essential in making this the best sauna. The sauna bench height is really important. It should be exactly 110 centimeters from the roof down, regardless of what the sauna total clearance is. Then the lower bench is 43 centimeters down from that, and then we see that we need 2 steps. The lower bench is 90 centimeters from the floor, which is quite high, so the steps will need to be 30 centimeters each. That is still reasonable, and all we have actually the space here for. The bench seating depth is 60 centimeters, and that's what we always aim for. There are backrests, bench skirts between the benches, and handrails at the bench ends, doubling as bench supports. The handrails are important for safely climbing up to the benches and coming down, as well as preventing anyone from falling down, and will make them look great. The benches are fully supported by vertical supports from the floor, so not from the walls, which allows us not to be concerned about the strength of the walls for that purpose. The bench boards are in this case 95 millimeters wide, determined by the material what we have available. We'll make a nice front edge to the benches from the same material. The benches must be really sturdy. They must not give a millimeter. And thinking there might be 15 persons on each side weighing perhaps 60 kilos each. So that's 900 kilos that the bench must support, like a rock. The sauna door will not be very high, and that's a good thing. The hot air that has risen up will not escape from the door. As in this sauna, the door will be constantly open as kids come in and go out all day long. The width of the door is determined by the wall section width, that what we can fit here. So let's talk about another key issue, and that is the ventilation. So we have a natural convention ventilation. Hot air rises up and will let it escape through hatches on the side walls that can be adjusted. The incoming air enters from under the door, and that has a few centimeters gap, and also there's a gap in the floor plates on both sides of the heater. These floor gaps are also for allowing splash water to drain out. So air has passages to enter, to be sucked into the heater, to be heated up, and then plenty of grid in the heater to let it come out. The hot air layers in the sauna. It's a term called stratification, and typically one layer is at the top of the heater height. Here the lower bench is at that level, and practically the whole body of the bather is on top of it in the hot air layer. The benches have gaps in the wood planks, so air circulates in the sauna, up from the heater to both sides along the ceiling, and then down at where the benches are. It circulates, so part of the air goes out from the vent holes we have on the sidewalls. The sensation for the bathers is of a very even heat, very soft heat, because they won't suffer from a hot spot anywhere. And the air will be kept fresh because there is plenty of amount in the ventilation. These design features that are all very carefully considered with decades of experience, the well-planned construction, and the way how this will be built, and the spectacular place where it will be placed in, will make this the best sauna. And the judge will be the kids who will get to enjoy it. And so let's see how I made it. Cost saving really became a sport with the sauna. So I bought most materials on an online auction site, such as the OSB plates, the inside spruce paneling, and the urethane insulation plates. This is a big sauna, so the amount of material is quite enormous. The heater, chimney, and the door were ordered online. The total budget was really low, about 4,500 euros including everything. If this was made in a factory by employed persons, the direct production cost would have been 3 times as much. What I'm doing here is just meticulously following my own design, since I would not test assemble this sauna in advance, so it would need to fit all together perfectly the first time at the campsite. So here I'm making the wall sections. I made an assembly jig from wood pallets, so each wall part was easy to make identical. These wood boards were some really cheap stuff, spruce wood, rough in the surface, but since they are going to be hidden away, no worries about that. The wood is 27 millimeters thick and the insulation plates are 25 millimeters. The urethane insulation plates are really easy to cut, just precise measurement and then cut. The urethane is very lightweight. It's an excellent insulator. It stays in place and in form by itself. The wall section's width came from these plates, so that I didn't need to cut them further. The whole wall structure is really simple. The oriented strand boards are very popular in construction. I would never put them in a hot place inside of the sauna, since they are glued together, but they are relatively inexpensive and work fine in this application. I measured and marked carefully and had this slider guide for the circular saw to make a precise cut. The edges of the stock plates are a bit rough, so I ended up cutting all the vertical edges to get a clean cut edge. See the pile of plates there? Making all these wall sections took a while. The leftover pieces I moved to the side, and I was actually surprised in the end with how little waste there was. We took these extra plate parts to the camp and used them there for various needs. The plate is then held in the correct place by the jig and it's screwed directly down to the wood frame with stainless steel screws, making the structure of the wall. There are plenty of screws all around the edge. Here's the next phase with these wall sections. I added an aluminum paper vapor barrier under the paneling. It also helps to insulate the sauna. In the sauna, the vapor barrier is an aluminum paper instead of plastic because of the high temperature. Standard plastic vapor barrier would degrade, warp, and could even melt. Here I'm attaching an edge guide for the wood paneling. See my earphones? I'm probably listening to Joe Rogan, a big fan of sauna himself. The wood paneling is then cut to length and nailed to the frame. I consider making the paneling vertical, but that would have been more difficult, and just the visual effect of having a horizontal paneling is what I wanted. Careful measurement of the correct place and then stapling down. Plenty of repetition in this move. The roof parts are a bit more complicated. The edge boards of the wood frame are turned on their side for extra strength and to have space for the double layer insulation. The roof insulation is really important, as any heat lost from the sauna means the heater needs to work harder to keep the whole sauna warm. Also, the temperature inside of the sauna will be more even when the sauna is well insulated. So here I designed the roof to have 2 layers of the insulation. For the roof there was more cutting of the urethane panels to do, careful measurement, and then an easy cut. The roof parts have a similar structure to the wall parts. The OSB plates are cut to precise size as before, and then the OSB plates are screwed down carefully. Then the roof part is turned around and the other side gets the aluminum paper seal and the spruce paneling is attached. I'm being careful to have the tongue and grooves all the way to the bottom. Spruce is a traditional sauna wood material, but it is type of wood that inevitably has knots on it that may seep some resin in the hot sauna. I was able to sort out pieces with large dark knots from the good ones here, and I also selected the best pieces for the roof and the top parts of the walls where the temperature is the highest. The bench frames are then made precisely according to the computer model. There are many identical frame parts which make it easier here and will make the eventual sauna assembly easier also. Separately out of camera, I made all the bench surfaces, the bench front edges and backrests, and also the bench handrails for the front side. All the parts for the sauna fit in 2 vans. The path to the beach was quite steep, and luckily I had help in carrying them down. I made pylons from 2x4s, measured carefully the location for each and drove them into the sand. The base frame was assembled and it was perfectly on level. Note the extra supports in the center for the heater. The floor plates then began the erection of the wall parts, which was very interesting to see how they finally fit together. We installed the benches next and then lifted up the roof sections by stepping on the benches. Then the heater was lifted inside. There were plenty of details to finish up, and as soon as it was ready on the inside, we had the first customers. We did finish the final touches by painting the outside, adding door trims, and added a thick plastic roof cover that was stapled to the outside edges of the roof. The end result was just as good as it was planned to be. The sauna was in use and full of bathers for several days and into the night. The theory of how it was supposed to work in evenness of the temperature, the ventilation, and the heater capacity, the lighting, and the acoustics all were confirmed in spades. The best comments that I heard some kids talk to each other was that this is a much better and nicer sauna than what we have at home. There were, according to my calculation, 24 persons in the sauna at one time. Then at the end of the camp, when the sauna was dismantled, it took only a couple of hours for the whole thing to be in parts and all the parts to be carried back up the hill. A great success and an honor to do this for the kids.